Catching Fire News. I'm your host, Alex Newman, and we have a very special guest joining us today, talking about things that are not talked about very much to people who have been glued to the fake media for the last few years. Some of this stuff may sound very implausible, but I assure you, a lot of things that sound implausible are, in fact, going on. So I think you're going to want to hear this. My guest today is Elana Freeland. She is a writer, a teacher, a lecturer. She researches the deep state and issues that, again, are not very much talked about, like geoengineering, MK Ultra, the CIA's outrageous mind control programs of the 1950s and even into the 1960s. She researches also things like electromagnetic weapons that most people don't even know exist. She's best known for her geoengineering trilogy, Chemtrails, HARP, and the Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth, Under an Ionized Sky, from chemtrails to space fence lockdown, and now her latest, geoengineered transhumanism, how the environment has been weaponized by chemicals, electromagnetism, and nanotechnology for synthetic biology. That was just released in October of last year. Some of these books have been translated into different languages, including Serbian. It's actually recommended reading at the Technical University in Serbia. That's Nikola Tesla's home nation. And it's the only book available to the public about how Tesla technology has been weaponized on a planetary scale. She's, again, Elana's got some really interesting areas of expertise that make her very unique. She's got a double undergraduate major, one in biology and one in creative writing. And she's got a master's of arts degree from St. John's College in Santa Fe, focused on historiography, which is how to do research. And her thesis was awarded honors. She's got a website, elanafreeland.com, and she posts daily on her Facebook site, EMF Planetary Engineering, and also on her Gab group. Elana, thank you so much for joining us today. And let's just assume that a lot of people in the audience don't know much about any of these topics. Let's start with some real basics. Probably people have heard of this chemtrail idea, but you're saying they're real. What are chemtrails? What's the purpose of them? How are they getting there? And what kind of proof or evidence do you have that this is for real?
Chemtrails is a term taken from the U.S. Air Force Academy chemistry manual back in the 1990s. And I think the term is used to disparage people who look up and see trails that are, for anyone with any chemistry background knows, are not contrails, condensation trails. No, these have a particular signature that shows they have chemicals in them. So the question at the beginning of this movement, which is a movement, it's been around for about 20 years. And though you and the public from mainstream media that everybody knows is corporate controlled, are not being told that geoengineering has been going on all that time, that's because it's a classified program. And it isn't just about ameliorating global warming or climate change, both of which are cover stories, by the way. Not that they don't exist. Let me be clear on that. And this has to do with your question about the chemtrails. They do exist. There is warming that's going on. And the climate is being changed. No question about it. But the question is it really carbons? Not at all. It's not carbons at all. Carbons are part of life. Carbon,
They
hydrogen,
were
oxygen.
carbon-based life forms, right?
Exactly. So this cover story has been very lucrative for those engaged in making money off of various nations, and blaming the people's cars for what is really a military industrial intelligence program that over the years, in 3 books worth, 13 years I've been in this, I would say that the corporate entity that is most involved in this, besides the military, of course, is Big Pharma. And lo and behold, here we are, now again, dealing with Big Pharma through these inoculations. So there is a relationship that this 3rd book of mine, which is a very fat book, by the way, with 60 illustrations, I go deep into this issue of what does the stuff coming down from the sky for 20, going on 30 years now, have to do, if anything, with what is being injected into people's bodies. And what I came up with slowly over time, I didn't jump to any conclusions, believe me. One book gave birth to the next book, gave birth to the next book. I realized it was transhumanism. And that's because from the very get go, and I happen to be involved with the scientist who was the first one to notice and take careful observations of the high flying stratospheric jets in the northern New Mexico, at that time, beautifully azure blue sky. He noticed that it was one, not contrails, but that those were chemical signatures. So he began researching by collecting precipitation after the jets had passed, and from dew, from rain, from snow, whatever it was, along with what he was collecting in his HEPA filter. And because of those two elements, those two aspects of experimentation, he was able to begin to isolate one thing from another that was coming down, which appeared to be coming down from the jets. And he found enough to lead him to more research on jet fuel, on what was going on regarding commercial jets and military jets. This was all in the 90s. He was working on this before I encountered him. And then I came on the scene in the early 2000s. I had a file on chemtrails. I had a file on HAARP, which is the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project, ionosphere Keter up in Gakona, Alaska. There had been a book out by Nick Begich, PhD, and Gene Manning called Angels Don't Play This Harp. That came out in 95. And I had gotten a whiff of how classified this program was by the fact that I was reading the book one day at a substitute teacher job I had then. I was in the lunchroom, faculty lunchroom. A couple of guys sat down who were teachers. They saw what I was reading, said, "Hey, what's that?" So I started to tell them about it, and they became very interested. Sitting among us was a little woman with her head down, her nose down in her sandwich, who I believe was probably a military wife of one of the big bases near where I live. And the next day, I had a military chopper over my roof that stayed up there for between 5 and 10 minutes. I felt it was a threat. I felt it was
Just
a
because you
mess.
were reading the book, Ilana?
Just because I was reading Angels Don't Play This Harp. That was what I came up with. Because otherwise, I was just a little, I wasn't a little old lady then. I was younger, but I was, I was just doing a lot of things. I, of course, have written on the deep state, so I'm not unknown to some people, some agencies, I suppose, but very low key, very low key. That was a big change. So when I met Clifford Carnicom, the scientist, down in New Mexico, and we began to talk, I leaned on my old biology background and began to look through his microscope at the things he was finding. And one of those, yes, he was finding a lot of heavy metals, all on a nano scale, I would say, but we didn't have the term nanotechnology back in the early 2000s. But we knew it was tiny, and that, but there was a heavy metal presence from aluminum, barium, strontium, chromium, all the usual suspects that are named in many, many articles and the few books that are out about chemtrails. So, but what he also found were biologicals, all the way from erythrocytes, red blood cells in chemical trails, to a thing we realized was being called morgellons. And the morgellons was a fiber, a filament, that you may remember recently during this particular so-called pandemic, them coming out with little film clips of the masks and the PCR swab tests that showed black filaments or fibers inside the masks and on the test kit. So was that Morgellons? I asked myself when I saw it, because I had already realized that Morgellons is connected to the synthetic biology going on now through the so-called gene therapy that people are undergoing, uh, because there are certain similarities, chemical and otherwise, that indicate that a program has existed for all these years of a delivery system, partially from aerosols. Then I discovered there were two other delivery systems, one being GMO foods, which are not really, I always go like this for the word foods there, not really food, and for the inoculations, the vaccine programs that children have been subject to for many years, and now adults are subject to. So there were three delivery systems that it seemed to me over time through these three books that the corporate cartel called Big Pharma, uh, ever since IG Farben back in the Nazi era, was running just about everything in Germany and in Europe. I realized that it was all about Big Pharma, and there must be connections. There must be a connection between what's being dumped and we're breathing it in. I mean, that's the key, isn't it? It isn't just being dumped and it falls near us like, some sort of missile or something. No, it's tiny, it's nanotechnology, 1 billionth of a meter each one of those nanos. And we breathe it in because we don't have any filter system to not breathe it in. And then it gets into our lungs and it goes into our blood. And then from there, it's a piece of cake for such tininess to get through the blood-brain barrier. And it's during
Well,
this same.
Ilana, we've only got about 10 minutes left, and I want to talk about, what is the purpose of these alleged developments? I mean, I'll admit, and I'm sure you realize this, this probably sounds extremely implausible to somebody out there listening who's not familiar with the world of nanotechnology. I mean, some of it just sounds like bad science fiction. And yet you say this is real, you say there's evidence for this, and you say the purpose is transhumanism. Well, I think that's a new term for a lot of people. So, what is transhumanism? What are they trying to do, and why?
Yeah, good. Transhumanism. It's the development of a new species of human being wherein that which makes us human is supplanted by technology.
So, what makes us human? So, what's going to be supplanted?
Well, think about it. You've got veins, you've got nerves, you've got muscle tissue, you've got a lot of things in your body that are because you're a human being, and you came from a certain genetic line. Well, now the genetic lines are being changed. We now know that what's going on is called gene drive therapy. And so we know that the mRNA is being used to change the genetics of human cells in the people that take the inoculation. And now, thanks to wonderful scientists like La Quinta Columna, which means the fifth column, in Spain, we are learning that in the serums themselves from all of the different big pharma corporations that are in the headlines all the time are actually delivering computer parts, tiny, tiny computer parts and software that indicate that they are, at least for the inoculated, trying to establish an electromagnetic relationship with what is originally a biological human. And this fits because when you start reading all the papers and patents I've read, you begin to see that they are changing molecular biology into digital biology. And the only thing I'm adding to this, other than the thousands of doctors who are now out in force and doing lots of electron microscopy, is that I'm saying that the environment was prepped for a transhuman shift from the natural human being, making an environment that's basically inimical to a real natural human being, and setting it up so that everything is wireless, everything is 5G, 6G, And we are subject to what I, in the second book, called the space fence, which is a Lockheed Martin term for this huge canopy of electromagnetism that we now live in as a planet.
But why are they doing this, Ilana? I mean, let's say that everything you're saying is absolutely true and documented. What would be the purpose of this? What's wrong with just letting humans be humans? Why do we have to make them into transhumans? Why do we have to change their DNA and get this technology? And you know, I know some of this is going on. I've reported on extensively that these efforts to merge man and machine, they've kind of come out of the closet. They're talking about this somewhat openly in terms of microchips within your brain that would be able to communicate wirelessly with the technology. But the question is why? What are they hoping to make money? Is there something worse? What's the purpose of this?
Well, how wide do you want to go? I mean, we could go all the way
Just lay it
to,
on out. We've got 8 minutes to go. So just tell us why you think they're doing this.
well, what about being as gods on the planet? Isn't
Mm.
that what the global elite are really after? Yes, to control all the banking, control the profits, control the money flow, but that's not enough. No, no, they want to control the human being, and I think the first time they may have seen that, at least that's my fantasy, was under the secret space program when in 1969 they tried to sell us the idea that they had gone to the moon. Now, why didn't they go to the moon? Because it's impossible for the human being as it is now, this natural human being, to get through those Van Allen belt radiation belts without being decimated and radiated beyond recognition. So, so
So
what
you
were
don't think
they?
people ever went to the moon, huh?
No, we didn't go to the moon. No way. At least by rocket. Now, am I willing to consider other exotic propulsion craft? Sure, I can consider it, but I can't prove anything. But I know that the Van Allen belts are impossible to get through for a human being. Now, for a machine, and we've had a lot of machines going to Saturn, to Jupiter, all sorts of places. That's not a problem. But if you need a human being to go into space, if that's what you want, then you're going to need another breed of human being. And that's where I think it started, the idea of a transhuman, a hybrid that slowly you make the environment such that the people are breathing in and eating and being inoculated with heavy metals, nanotechnology, which is can be remotely run, and you can do programming and everything remotely, and you then have the nerves and arteries and things slowly being replaced by machinery until the human being is actually a machine. Now it's already started. People have titanium hips, right? There's all sorts of ways we can see where that's the direction we're heading and we're being headed. But
Yeah,
the
and I've
idea,
seen some of these global elites talking about this. I mean, this Yuval Noah Harari speaks pretty openly about his belief
yes,
that some of us are going to evolve into gods, and the rest of us, if we're still around, are going to be some sort of subspecies, kind of like orangutans or something. You know, pathetic compared with these godlike creatures. And again, I recognize all this sounds totally crazy. I mean, if you're a person who has not looked into it, it sounds absolutely bonkers, Ilana. We've only got a few minutes left, so I want to really ask you this. Um, you know, first of all, I think people need to look at your book and make a decision about whether they think this is credible. You need to look at the evidence for yourself before coming to a conclusion, because oftentimes fact is stranger than fiction. But assuming this is all correct, Ilana, what do people do to stop it? I mean, you explained that it's, you know, supposedly it's coming down from the sky, it's in our food, it's, you know, it's in the vaccines. How in the world does a person protect themselves and their family from this, if it's even possible, or is it just totally impossible in your view?
well, there are things going on now. A lot of people who are aware of what I've just shared with you, to some degree, are experimenting with their own bodies, with their own families. They're taking another look at the food they're eating. Should you be eating GMO foods? They're taking another look at their environment. Should I have all these electromagnetic toys around me and be absolutely buried in 5G? Uh, what is really human? That's another question that's coming up for people. Is human just, does it just mean a head, a torso, arms and legs, or does it mean some more ephemeral qualities that you can tell when you're listening to Mr. Harari that we are talking to someone who probably is not human anymore, would be what I would boldly say.
So
He
you think
has,
he's upgraded himself already? You think he's already got
yeah,
computer?
I think he's
Okay.
very upgraded, and
Wow.
I think he smells the coffee on that side of things. I mean, you know, the idea that I'll see you on the other side, said that rock star down at Astro World when that whole thing was electromagnetically. All those kids were so zapped. I don't know if you remember that. That's a
I
long
do
time ago,
remember that. Several
like a
people
couple
died.
of
Yeah.
months ago.
Yeah.
Everything's
Yeah. Yeah. Several
happening
people
so
died. I remember.
fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is being human, and what do I owe my humanity? Do I owe it anything, or you know, that's somebody else's problem? I mean, so much is coming up now, right? Because we are up against the wall now, and people are more and more people are waking up to, oh, we are not going to return to the normal. Mr. Harari says that we're going to be run, and remember this carefully, from under the skin, he said. Under the
Yeah.
skin. He's talking about
Surveillance under the
nanotechnology.
skin.
That's
Yeah.
how they're going to do it. Forget the microchips. They don't need the microchips anymore. They've got nanotechnology, and we've been breathing it in for 3 decades from what's been dumped on us from the air. Yeah, that's how it works.
Well, Ilana, we are unfortunately out of time. Definitely a fascinating conversation. I very much would like to read your book too. It's definitely piqued my curiosity. Some of these things I've done a little bit of research into, others I have not even heard of. What's the best way to get your books, and where do you recommend people start? Do you start at the first part of the trilogy, or is it okay to just get the newest one first and then work backwards from there? What do you recommend?
Yeah, I think you can get the new one. I think you need to get the new one because it's about 650 pages, and it goes into every nitpicking thing that you would need to know, starting out with geoengineering. Get the book. You can get the black and white version from Amazon or your bookseller. But if you want the color version, I went ahead and set up a separate deal for that so that people would get a decent price for it. You can order that from the Rudolf Steiner bookstore in Seattle, Washington. They carry it for specifically for me so that they can send those out to people, and they're sending books all over the world.
So, are you affiliated with them? Because I guess Rudolf Steiner, if I remember correctly, he's kind of it was kind of involved in the New Age world. Huh? This is not a Christian idea, I guess, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Well, Rudolf Steiner is the one who, you know, let's just cherry pick here. He's the one that Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt, MD, and Tom Cowan, MD, quoted as saying 100 years ago, there will be a vaccine that comes out that if you take it, you will no longer think of spiritual things. I think we're there. So no,
Wow.
I
Yeah,
don't
I
have an
remember seeing that
affiliation.
DoD
There's
video.
no affiliation other than this nice person who owns a very small bookstore instead of Amazon agreed to sell this color copy.
Fantastic, awesome. Well, Ilana, I want to thank you so much for coming on, and I recognize it takes courage to speak about these types of things, to research these types of things. So appreciate you coming on. Appreciate you compiling all this information. I do hope that folks will look into it because again, a lot of it sounds crazy, and then you look and a lot of stuff that sounded crazy 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah,
Now we're looking and saying, oh, whoa, okay, maybe that wasn't so crazy
yeah,
after all. So, Ilana, I
exactly.
want to thank you for coming on. I want to encourage folks to get a copy of your book. You're going to be at the Red Pill Expo coming up in July.
Oh,
Is that
good. I'm
right?
glad you mentioned that. Yes, I am, and I'm excited about it. They've got a great lineup this year.
Yeah, fantastic. I'll be there too. So I'm looking forward to seeing you in person, Ilana. Thank you. And we appreciate it. Hopefully, we'll get you back soon.
Okay, bye bye.
Thanks. Bye bye. Thank you. All right, folks. That was Elana Freeland, author, writer, researcher who does a lot of work into subjects that are really esoteric, things that other people are not looking into much. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. I am your host, Alex Newman. If you want to support this program, I do encourage you to check out our sponsors. Right now, we are working with Prepare with Sentinel, it's American Patriot Supply, My Patriot Supply. They sell long-term storable food. So if you go to preparewithsentinel.com, You can get $150 off every 3-month long-term storable emergency food packet. I recommend that at least every member of your family have one of those. And if you go to preparewithsentinel.com, again, you'll get $150 off each one of those. Plus, you can support this show. I'm Alex Newman. I am the founder and chief at libertysentinel.org. I do a lot of other things too. I'm the senior editor of the New American Magazine, and I write for a lot of different publications in the United States and abroad, and I do a lot of other things. But I want to thank you guys for tuning in. This is Catching Fire News. Until next time, God bless you all.